Dear VKIS community, I need your attention because that is exactly what we are missing in today's world with the influx of information that is coming our way. I know you click this video to get that one skill which is required to crack the prelims examination. But before that, let's understand the problem. To understand this, here is an interesting thought experiment. On November 27th, on the eve of election campaigning, our Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji has passed just in front of the VKIS Institute's office. So one of our team member has posted this on a lighter note on the Telegram channel. I took the same message and posted on my personal social media accounts as well. And the reactions that followed was very surprising, especially with regards to this pillar number B1097. Usually, if it were not for my own office, I wouldn't remember this pillar number myself. And because of this specific event, it was surprising to note that a lot of my own friends and family members started remembering this pillar number exactly in the following days after the conversation. This made me extremely curious. How does our mind exactly function and how can we make use of that awareness for our examination? And this video is a product of that understanding. So I want all your undivided attention, please. If you take a look at how our mind functions from an evolutionary standpoint, these are the answers. Firstly, survival and adaptation. Early humans needed to learn quickly to survive in changing environments. The brain evolved to prioritize learning what was critical for survival and also for adaptation. Like, say, for example, identifying the threats, finding food. Okay, this was very important for our mind, and this was the primordial function, the most primitive function of mind. The second stage of evolution was about pattern recognition. Let's say, for example, our human brain is wired to recognize patterns, which is crucial for identifying, let's say, edible plants, tracking animals, and understanding seasons. This was very important for human beings to survive. And this pattern recognition ability is the core of learning and problem solving for human beings. And this is the most important thing, that is social learning. What do you mean by this? Humans are inherently social beings, and much of our evolutionary success is attributed to our ability to learn from others. So, this observation and mimicking others was a safer, efficient way to acquire skills than being very random. So, the next time you find yourself listening to a topper talk or looking at any coaching institute material in a hope that it will make you learn things, understand it is an evolutionary trait that you are resorting to. And also at the same time, in the face of this entire uncertainty with respect to prelims examination, resorting to last minute elimination tricks by freshers is yet another example of trying to use experience of experienced people in helping them recognize a pattern. But this elimination tricks, when you apply blindly, of course they are going to fail you because you have not done the prerequisite learning for an entire year. So it requires time and it requires focus. What is the impact of this entire phenomenon? Before talking about the impact, let's go back to that first step of human mind. It is recognizing patterns and it is recognizing threats to help us survive. So if you notice, whenever you look at any shocking news or any sensationalistic news, we have undivided attention on that because we want to survive. You empathize with that situation. You probably feel that you are in that situation, and it is a human trait to have more attention on that particular issue. Now, failing prelims examination is like a shock for anyone who has spent a lot of time. Okay, so let's say I'll give you an example. If you noticed a scenario where there is a plane crash, so obviously in a state of shock and in a state of failure, you would ignore that there are millions of other safe flights and you would focus only on this bad premise, and there is a probability that you will conclude that flying is dangerous. Again, this might seem very illogical for day-to-day sequences, because accidents happen every day but people don't stop traveling or using their vehicles. But why are we not able to apply that to the prelims examination? Here is where you will understand a psychological concept called attentional bias. So, attentional bias refers to the tendency of individuals to pay more attention to certain types of information. Our mind is wired towards sensationalism and negative things. We ignore or downplay other kinds of information where the probability of success is lying because we feel threatened and we are not able to cope with the shock. This is an important concept for us, and this is also the premise for a lot of chaos in the market out there. Let me explain this concept with a question from UPSC Prelims 2019 question. There was a word that appeared in that question, Denisovan. Probably, if you're having a context of anthro or someone who is a regular newspaper reader, this might, help you in arriving at an answer because of your interest in the subject. But let's say you're a fresher who is relying on just information to clear this examination. So if someone says that, if you're not reading Hindu newspaper and this was right there in the newspaper, you should have remembered it, it creates uncertainty. There is a fear that is being generated. And instead of looking for that sensible way, we ignore it because of our attentional bias. And this outliers or this bouncers, as you would call it in the prelims context, they play a major role in the fear psychosis of aspirants. And they drive the market for the next 1 year, depending on how the market is perceiving that. There is also one reason why aspirants get attracted to this kind of rhetoric is because it is easy to rely on memory. Because at one glance, if you take a look at this news item and then take a look at this question, it feels easier. When I say easier, it is the perception of the candidates, not exactly the truth I'm talking about. This feels easier than analyzing multiple statements and having a context because it feels all the more difficult. You have to spend a lot more time, and sadly our mind is only interested in constant security, feeling of security. If you have access to certain material, you feel secure. We don't want to address this fear component in a logical way because this is how our minds are function. So we spend more time in, ironically, we spend more time accumulating all this material and feeling a constant anxiety rather than focusing all our energies on a certain process. And we are not to be blamed because nobody comes up with a single process that can help you clear this examination. Various toppers have different mechanisms, different methodologies, and that creates even more confusion. I'm just stating the facts. I'm not, giving any yarn here. Just understand how our mind functions. As a result, something phenomenal is happening across the world today, and it's not common only in UPSC aspirants. It is universal now. What is that I'm talking about? It is the fear of missing out. What do I mean by this? Historically, being a part of a group was essential for human beings to survive. Now, in this scenario where information was very scarce, okay, missing out on information or activities could mean losing one's place in the social hierarchy. Now, compare that with civil services aspirants, okay. So, if you have decreased access to information or resources, your survival will become very difficult. So, fear of missing out was very instinctual response to maintain social bonds and status. That is an evolutionary response. So, I can say that FOMO is a kind of a risk aversion. We don't want to take risk. Missing out could mean failing to identify and react to potential threats or changes in environment, which could have been very critical for survival of early human beings. Okay, but this is slowly changing. Whatever was our instinct is now becoming our bane, especially for UPSC aspirants. Let me explain how. So, in this hyper competitive mode, UPSC will always evolve. Understand that UPSC is meant for evolution. But are we evolving in the right way? We, as in the student community, you have to understand this. So, every time something happens, how does the student community react? They either end up buying new materials from different market players, they buy hard more current affair magazines, they solve more number of questions, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 questions. There are people who've done that and failed miserably in prelims. And there are people who just solve 3 or 4 mock tests and clear this exam with a lot of confidence and lot of clarity that they're going to write mains. Why is this disparity happening? But before that, let us take a look at this UPSC 2020 prelims question. So this was sort of unusual question because nobody exactly reads about how elephants behave in traditional textbooks. Let us understand our education system in India. Let's say you have a textbook A, something is taught to you in the class, you repeat it multiple times, you revise it through this repetition process itself, and then you reproduce in your college exams. But UPSC is not, looking for parrots that can repeat information. UPSC is looking for problem solvers. So in order to solve a problem, you need to identify the problem and understand. Solving these kind of questions can be easy for someone who has spent at least 2 to 3 years in this examination because of their experience. But the same candidate might find it difficult to score easier questions that are based on static parts or something that is reliant on memory because they spend way too much time on reading these current affairs, etc., than focus on re-enhancing their memory, which was eroding away. Let's say, for example, basic topics in history, geography, etc., which are purely memory based. They tend to focus more on current affairs. And freshers looking at these candidates also ignore these parts and focus more on current affairs. So, this disproportionate effort is what is another factor that is causing your failure. And to deal with this uncertainty, elimination techniques or certain patterns which were recognized, like I've told you, right? Recognizing patterns is a inherent human quality that can help people survive. So a lot of toppers and other people who identify these patterns always clear this examination no matter how difficult it is. Because it is a relative examination, not because they know everything under the sun. But when you put all those elimination techniques out of context and you apply it very blindly, a lot of candidates will obviously be eliminated because they don't know the context in which these techniques were supposed to be applied. So you need to get your basics right. Of course, even the senior candidates or all the institutes which teach these patterns also advocate that you have to remember your basics. But most of the times, these elimination techniques and this kind of courses are sold in the last minute, and candidates resort to this last minute techniques when there was a stage in 2017-18 when these kind of techniques work brilliantly. They're not working so much right now in the same format as it is taught in these classes because UPSC evolves. That's the constant thing that you have to remember. Unless you get your basics right for an entire time period, you are going to suffer. This shortcut techniques. Today it can be elimination techniques, tomorrow it can be something else. You will always be challenged by UPSC. Take a look at this question and the question format. So, unless you know a line-tailed macaque or Malabar civet, Sambar deer, these are all part of your static books. So it doesn't really matter if you know the um, elimination techniques or not. If you know the content and the context, you will be able to answer this. So this is the difference between knowledge and wisdom. You may have the knowledge of what these elimination techniques are, but you need to have the wisdom to know when to apply them or how to apply them. This is where everyone is faltering. This is the point that I wanted to make. I'm not saying elimination techniques are irrelevant. They can be relevant because pattern recognition is always the constant. The pattern recognition might change. How it can happen, the process might change from time to time. But it is a basic evolutionary trait for problem solving. So, this is how our human mind functions. The next thing that you need to understand is confirmation bias. What does it mean? In evolution, change is the only constant, and sometimes UPSC changes in different ways in different subjects. Let's say, for example, I've observed a small pattern in history, which I've detailedly explained on the channel in 2021 itself after the prelims examination. A lot of people disagreed, debated, etc., etc. I know that it was coming because if I'm saying that you have to slightly tweak your strategy and pick up new resources for certain topics, they will not like it. But again, in 2022 as well and 23 as well, I've documented all of them. If you're interested, you can go back to the channel and read what I'm talking about. But the point I'm trying to make here is we don't want to change that easily. And this is going to come again from past successes. Again, let me talk about topper talks. Let's say a topper in 2018 or 19, they gave a topper talk based on the context on the information they had in 2018 or 2019. Is it the problem of the topper who advocated something when a candidate watches it in 2023? No, right? But maybe that particular video gained traction in social media, and that the same advice is being circulated, but it doesn't change the fact that UPSC has evolved in the last 4 or 5 years. Okay, so just because you hear some past successes doesn't mean that you should not change. To what extent, to how much, etc. Again, it depends on very data driven insights. I'm not asking you to blindly pick up anything and everything. Okay, so this is what you have to understand about confirmation bias. We don't want to change that easily because of our past successes. Because when I'm picking something new, let's say you spend a lot of time reading spectrum, suddenly I'm saying that you have to read something more. You don't want to do it because it is an unknown area and you have a lot of other subjects to do. The time and effort requirement and the cost benefit ratio, all this should definitely be taken into consideration. And when you're taking an advice, you have to factor in all of this. But lastly, most importantly, unless the guidance takes into consideration of the limited amount of time an aspirant has, you should not implement that. So this clear guidance and etc., it's a problem. And here is where YouTube is again playing a spoil sport, because again it's not a problem of YouTube. You take many advices from many YouTubers or many different contexts, basically different methodologies, and you mix all of them together and end up getting confused. So nobody can give you a 100% clear guidance that works for everyone. You need to identify your style. That is what I'm trying to tell you. Nobody wants to advocate something that is wrong or false. So please don't get into that perfectionist attitude and spoil your mind. This is for the aspirants, especially the freshers. If you think you are not able to understand the logic behind their advice, ignore it. If you understand it, do follow it, stick to it. For 2023 prelims examination, I conducted a small mock test called the Pratiksha test series. And I've followed a slightly different approach when it comes to this test series. Normally, what happens is gradually the toughness level is increased, and thereafter the questions are made very difficult in the final days. But for me, I've taken a radically different approach. I was only having an opportunity of 200 questions. So my intent was to ensure that these 200 questions are used in such a way that they cover maximum amount of themes while a student is solving it. But normally what happens is the student is accustomed to ensuring that their score is high, because this numerical quantity makes them feel safe rather than actually giving them an opportunity to learn. So I have always told you that there is always a mismatch between what we do and what UPSC expect, because UPSC is unpredictable in the sense that it does not conform to what you prepare in test series. It has its own way of dealing with things. Rather, what should our approach be? We should focus on what UPSC wants us to do. That is to be comfortable with this uncertainty. That is the only way you are going to create this examination. Don't expect this exam to be certain. Okay, that gives you the mental ability to adjust very quickly. And those who took this Pratiksha test series, two mock tests, 200 questions, they were able to see a lot of repetitions. The reason why I'm able to do that is because every question has actually covered 4 to 5 themes. It took a lot of time to make this question papers, and that is the reason it is useful. A lot of questions that you get may or may not be having this level of meticulous preparation while they're preparing the question papers. And the subscribers of this test series has actually messaged me after the prelims exam, showing how I directly gave the questions. I'm not giving anything different. I was just extrapolating the patterns that were there in the previous year questions and also the current affair themes. The next possible question, like say, I've been spending quite enough time on newspapers and understanding public policy. So that has helped me in ensuring that I give out the right questions. You can see here directly the same questions came here. It's not because I was magically having some intuition. It's just that when you spend enough time on something, even you will be able to do that. But the problem is this FOMO, which is distracting you constantly. This is what I wanted you to understand first. Now you might be asking me a question. Why is this a problem now? Why is it not before? Because today we have information overload. Thanks to Geo in 2016, now everybody has access to internet. Everybody can become a content creator. It is not wrong. Even I got an opportunity to be a content creator because of this internet revolution. So I'm not saying that technology is wrong. It would be foolish to say that. But the problem is when you are very gullible and when you have vast number of choices and advices and when you are connected globally and also you have access to almost every piece of information and combine that with considerable attraction of the social media influence where you get ideal life portrayals like let's say for example this royal entry videos of officers etc. They tend to distort your mind and distract you from what you are supposed to focus. This is the major problem in today's world, especially for youngsters who are just graduating out of the college. And most importantly, this is an evolutionary mismatch. What do I mean by this? Our brain's evolutionary design is for scarce information, not abundant information. Obviously, you will be overwhelmed. What happens if you're overwhelmed? You burn out. Just before you reach the examination hall itself, you burn out and there is a constant anxiety. Why do you think you are always anxious these days? It's because of this reason. So, how to get out of this trap? By acknowledging the limits of what you can do and realistically cover. So, your ability to trust one person is the emotional intelligence. This is the new form of intelligence that this world requires, especially in the age of AI. Now, AI is only adding to this nonsense by, AI generated videos, AI generated content, etc., etc. This is a very bad use case for AI, especially for UPSC aspirants, and it is only going to make them more anxious. Be very watchful when you see AI. Okay, use it very judicially. Again, this is a topic for different discussion. Don't take me in a wrong way. I'm not saying AI is bad. Wrong usage of AI is bad. Okay, it will disturb your peace of mind and it will disturb your entire pace of preparation and it will distract you. This is what is happening in the last few years for thousands of aspirants. I hope you understand and resonate with whatever I'm speaking. Children, now, what is the way out of this entire issue? You have to start focusing on clarity. Now, what do I mean by clarity? Here is where I'll again bring one concept called synaptic pruning. In the first few years, like if you're a medical student or someone with a medicine background, you might understand this. In the first few years, our neurons, that is our brain cells, are wired in a very complex way. But as we age or as we become specialists because of our focus, okay, other neurons get destroyed, the connections get destroyed, and we only focus on what is important to us. Until recently, it was believed that this concept is very relevant only in children, but latest research it showed that it is relevant even in adults, and this is how specialists, especially let's say for example someone who is pursuing PhD, they become hyper focused on only one problem that they're meant to solve. This is what focus can get us. Synaptic pruning, this is just an understanding of human brain that I'm talking about. You have to focus on getting this clarity. So here is where I'm trying to tell you the final conclusion. If you trust a plan, stick to it till the end. Till the end. Okay. And this applies even to my own students as well. And it also applies to students who are following a different plan as well. But what if you don't have a plan? This is where I'm trying to address this problem through the strategic prelims mentorship program. Okay. So what is this mentorship program? The problem here is one, you don't have a single point of contact or single trustable source where you can focus on. So I'm willing to take that responsibility of ensuring that you have a single source for all your current updates plus static updates. Ultimately, it doesn't matter if it is current affairs or static. The problem statement is you have to clear the prelims examination. That is the problem statement. It doesn't matter what you're reading, how you're reading. So this is the problem that we are supposed to solve. And my answer for this is focusing on every activity that is there in this mentorship program. The schedule will be attached below. There is no watertight compartmentalization of static and dynamic. So you will see that they are integrated with static topics. And probably depending on the topic, I'll go to the past 4 or 5 years also, depending on the theme of that topic. Okay. How does this exactly help you? Let's take a look at this question, and through this question, you will be able to understand. Take a look at this question. This is a very unfamiliar question. You wouldn't come across this sort of information in any traditional textbooks, but you still have to solve. How are you going to do it? Now, here is where I would treat prelims as a treasure hunt. You have certain number of clues, and using the clues and our existing knowledge, you're supposed to try and achieve this objective. Now, take a look at the clue here. So, there is an indication for the direction and the distance to a source of their food. We're talking about a specific phenomenon called the waggle dance. So, if you were forced to take a bet on this question and you're struggling, how is this program going to help you? Let's say, for example, if you're getting questions which will help you think in this direction, don't you think it will help you? So, this is exactly what I'm trying to say here. Let's say, for example, here it says that there are others. It is not just one organism, there are others. So, it indicates that there is some sort of a social structure where it becomes very much necessary for communication and this information to be passed from one group member to other group member. Now, take a look at these options. Butterflies. Do you think they have this kind of social structure? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. But whenever there is a social structure, it definitely means that the organisms live in a community, they live together. So, if you take a look at our options, you have to understand that UPSC is definitely unpredictable, but it is also not yet, of course, so sadistic that it will give you completely unfamiliar things that you don't see in your world around you. You must have seen a honeycomb. How do they live? They live in a community. So that is one indicator. Then, if you're also aware of dragonflies, you know they are predators and they hunt insects. Butterflies take nectars directly from flowers and they don't have the habit of storing it. Okay. Similarly, wasps. These are some insects. But if you have to pick between these two, the common sense will always be inclined towards this basic premise that UPSC is not so sadistic. So, what if you are trained on these kind of insights based on the previous year questions and you combine that with static and also the dynamic parts? This is how the prelims mentorship program is going to function. It's a one point destination for addressing the prelims needs. I'm not promising a magic bullet. I'm not saying that everybody who's going to join this program will clear the prelims exam. It depends on the amount of consistency that you exhibit towards this program. If you're distracted by different other strategies, or I'm not saying they're wrong, but you will not be able to follow this or that. And that for that reason, this program requires hyper attention and hyper focus. I hope you understood the intent of this program. Now you might be wondering, how is this a current relevant issue? Take a look at this Telegram post. A lot of times I've posted about ecological indicators, butterflies, etc. And when you have repetition of a particular theme, I'll definitely discuss about it. So you will at least know that butterflies will not be the answer for the previous question, which is a good starting point. Again, I'm telling you very clearly, the focus is not on this type of questions, but to ensure that our 80% of the result comes from the 20% of the effort, or the Pareto's principle. Let us consolidate the low hanging fruits first and clear the cutoff. But if you're someone aiming for IFOS, maybe this kind of additional insights will also help you. That is what I'm trying to tell you. Another question, take a look at this. For example, if you use your awareness about Indian society, take a look at this person's name. You might not have heard this person's name. For example, KAR. If you take a look at this name, which region does it sound? Probably Goa, Maharashtra. For example, Sachin Tendulkar. Okay. So you would notice that this question, especially this third one, they're restricting the use of this person to the region of Bengal, which is very unlikely. Okay. UPSC will complicate, but it will not complicate so much about this book as well as the person. At least one clue will be given to solve the questions. So if you eliminate this three, you will be left with only one option. You don't have to know anything about it in that particular year, but maybe in the next year, there can be a question in depth related to this person called Shakaram Ganesh Juskar. Okay, this is how UPSC evolves. You will be trained on these aspects as well. So now that you understood how our mind functions, you know how to plan your timetable and study for this prelims examination. If you want to take a look at the VKIS mentorship program, I'll be posting the details in the channel, Telegram channel. If you're watching me for the first time, this is the address of the Telegram channel. You can also find, all the topper testimonials who have followed this channel for quite a while. I'm giving this because a lot of people might want to see the credibility of whatever I'm saying. So you can go and check for yourself there. And last importantly, if this plan is to work for you, what I want from you is an unflinching commitment to the plan. Your habits will determine how clearly you are focused on this. You're not supposed to do multiple things and you're not supposed to commit yourself to multiple ideas for the same reasons that we have discussed in this entire video. So, by the way, what do you think is the skill that is required to clear this examination? What is the learning out of this video that you got? I want your answers in the comment section below. Those who are watching me for the first time, my name is Vikas. I'm the founder of VKIS, the Institute for Mentoring UPSC Aspirants. That's it for now. Thank you.